This is part 13 in a series of videos on how weird the Marvel Universe would be if John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1946. Philip Wiley's science fiction novel Gladiator is in the public domain, and the first half of the book was adapted in issue 9 of Marvel Preview. If you're thinking Marvel published Planet of the Apes, Logan's Run, and Doc Savage, they were published by Marvel, but they're not in the Marvel Universe. True, but Marvel Atlas 1 does mention Hugo Danner, protagonist of Gladiator. While Danner dies in the book, Roy Thomas and Tony DeZuniga never finished adapting it, leaving the fate of his Marvel Universe counterpart ambiguous. The book is about Hugo struggling to find his place in a world that fears and hates him, but our Hugo meets a kindred spirit in 1916 when Orson Randall, the Iron Fist of that era, is fighting in Fort Souville, France. This lines up with the timeline of the book, as Danner is with the Foreign Legion until America enters the war, when he's reassigned to an American unit. Danner and Randall are reticent to reveal how they got the way they are. Danner was raised to be wary how others would receive him if they knew the whole truth, and is still cautious even when faced with another superhuman. And Randall, faced with the evils of a world war, fears what would happen if outsiders tried to use and abuse Kunlun for themselves. But from Randall, Danner does find out they aren't alone. There are other superhumans out there, a few of whom Randall later hooks up with to defend London from an alien invasion. So once the war ends, Danner doesn't aimlessly return home trying to find purpose in his life. He searches the world, looking for others like him to help make the world a better place. Sounds good on paper, but in practice, it's a little sinister. Book Danner borders on tyrannical with his aims to improve the world. Maybe he means well, but when he describes his plans to lean on corrupt politicians, it sounds very Injustice Gods Among Us-y. It's this almost despotic attitude that puts caution in the step of one Tobias Messenger, a mutant who gathered a team to help put an end to the Great War. Tobias likely found out about a superhuman using his abilities here and there, but when he gauged Danner's mind, he didn't like what he saw. Even before Danner decided he would non-democratically take care of corruption in Washington, he tended to lose his temper, which was dangerous for someone with his abilities. It didn't happen every day, but often enough to concern Messenger. Messenger's recent recruit, John Howlett, challenges Messenger on keeping his distance from Danner, as John also spent a few years incarcerated, feeling isolated from the rest of the world. But Messenger says he's not a mutant, we'll keep an eye on him, but we're not exposing ourselves to him until he becomes a danger to the world. Danner discovers he nearly met John Steele, who also fought in the Great War. By now, Steele is already captured by the Germans, and Danner has little more than rumors about his exploits to tell him Steele existed at all. Turns out, we have Steele to thank for Danner's condition. The book is vague about how Abednego Danner gave Hugo his abilities. He mentions natural animal strength, but what if that was a cover? What if Abednego Danner studied John Steele, and that's how Hugo became empowered? John Steele was a Union soldier during the American Civil War, and was chased by Confederate soldiers into a breach on Earth that led to infinite folds of time and space. John and the Confederates chasing him met an entity called the Abyss, which enslaved them. This is seemingly where John and his adversaries obtained their extreme longevity and above-average strength. Also, I theorize the citizens of Kunlun sending radio signals to Mars is what brought the Martian invaders to Earth a handful of times. I'm standing by that, but the Abyss is imprisoned/slumbers on Mars, so perhaps these signals from Kunlun also alerted it to Earth, prompting it to recruit Steele and Aloysius Thorndrake. But John somehow broke free of his conditioning, while Thorndrake and his men did not. What if John met a scientist, maybe many scientists, trying to find a way to break free, and met Abednego Danner, famous in scientific circles for his wild theories? Danner didn't have the means to free John from the Abyss's control, but he could have found his eureka moment to imbue superhuman strength on someone after studying Steele. This isn't that outrageous, as Steele was later put in suspended animation in the Great War, and during World War II, Abraham Erskine studied him, trying to recreate his abilities. About a year after Erskine was taken to America, he perfected his super soldier process. Another scientist doing the same seems plausible. Danner may have feared recriminations from Steele if he blabbed about his secrets, so told everyone something grasshopper jumps. Much like Danner of the novel, our Danner wants to change the world and believes the only way he can do that is to find allies. He reunites with Orson Randall and his allies, Freedom's Five, but they're not on the same page as he is about changing how the world operates. They're more about protecting it, but not bringing about changes as they see fit. Danner digs around, finds out about magical phenomena here and there. Though Danner's something of a prodigy, he isn't sure he believes in magic enough to pursue that to aid in his goals. By the time he feels like he's at a dead end, he returns home only to find his father has died. died. Book Danner wasn't great at keeping in touch with his parents, so I can see him getting carried away with his plans and forgetting to contact his parents after the war. Abednego was on the fence on if he should destroy his research notes or pass them to his son, and didn't seem certain what to do until he was on his deathbed. So this Abednego doesn't leave his notes to Hugo. The loss of his father and his lack of progress in finding or creating allies pushes Danner further into his almost megalomaniacal behavior, to the point where he begins leaning on world leaders he sees as not acting in the world's best interests. This is what pushes Tobias Messenger and his allies to try to talk sense into Danner, and failing that, put a stop to his proto-tyranny. You lean on the wrong guy, you might start another world war. Even at his best, Danner was cocky, always acting like nothing could tear him down, likely because, as far as he knew, nothing could. So he won't accept these strangers telling him to stop his antics. The immovable object meets the unstoppable force, as both ideologies believe they're in the right. This puts an end to Messenger's team, with many of his allies who, in Earth 616, he said weren't as powerful as the post-atomic age mutants, dying at Danner's hands. Some of Messenger's more recent allies, Clara Creed, Clara Prast, and John Howlett, proved to be more durable and are able to survive the battle. But even with a few survivors, Messenger is already in the early stages of thinking the world can go hang. Maybe it was the horrors of war, maybe he's seeing what Danner experienced in the novel, how people don't really want to be saved. Clara, and John stick together, but aren't sure where they should go from here. But that's not it for poor Danner. He's dead, but his stirring up the world looking for superhumans got the attention of big bad behind-the-scenes operator Romulus. While the Weapon X program doesn't exactly exist in this world, with no Apocalypse or Mr. Sinister's machinations, Romulus is doing similar stuff to what he was doing in Earth 616. So he snatches Danner's corpse and incorporates whatever he can learn from it into his Sabretooth clones he recently acquired. Once he finds out who this guy is, he'll send one of his agents to the Danner household to look for anything Abednego Danner might have left behind. He's not going to create a massive army like Hugo Danner wanted to do. Romulus is subtler than that. But he will put his research to use in some nefarious scheme in the future. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, I've done others you should check out, and I hope to have some more in the future. Until then, have a good one.